So today we're going to be creating our own Aldo Tolino response, and we're just going to review some of the key characteristics of his work. So he uses lots of angular shapes and he layers images on top of each other to create this fragmented outcome here, which has a lot of distortion in it. You can see from the layering that he considers how one thing sits on top of another, and that helps to create a sense of depth within the image. So we definitely get the feeling that this eye here is further behind than, let's say, this one. And we want to make sure that within our work we've got that sense of depth too. So I'm just going to push those outcomes to one side and introduce you to some of the materials and some of the safety precautions that we need to take. So everybody should have a cutting mat, and you'll use that to cut when you're cutting anything. You should have a metal ruler, and then you should have a scalpel. With these, can you make sure that they always stay on your cutting mat, you don't drop them on the floor. If you're not using it, please make sure the blade is in the down position like this, and you can change that just by sliding this up and down. If you are using it, you use it like this with your finger, placing pressure on the top. You don't touch the blade at all, and this part here is the part that we cut with, not this part. You'd be amazed by how many students try and use this part and then tear their images. So what I need to do first, I'm just going to put that blade back down so I'm not using it right now. I'm going to move it to one side. I'm going to get my images out. And the first thing I need to do is select my base. You see, my images are quite problematic because they're all quite similar, but hopefully yours are very different to each other. So my base, I'm going to choose this image because it takes up quite a lot of the space. Central composition, there's a real focal point in it. I'm not going to cut that layer at all, so I'm just going to move that to one side. The next layer that I'm going to use is this one here. And now what I want to do is I want to start cutting out some of the types of shapes that I can see in Aldo Tolino's work. And I'm going to try and do that really thoughtfully by considering, if this layer goes on top of there, if I cut out a shape, what am I going to be revealing? So these two eyes are roughly in the same place, but I want to create a sense of distortion just around there, so I'm going to cut a shape that runs through his eyes. So I'm going to use a ruler, line it up. I'm going to align my scalpel right beside that, and I'm going to cut a shape down like this. And I want to take quite a lot of this second layer, because then on the third layer I'll be able to reveal even more. And I'm just going to try and make my shape as irregular as possible here, making sure I put enough pressure down so that the line cuts. And then I'm there, and that should just pop out like so. And you can see that I've got nice clean edges everywhere. Haven't crumpled up my paper at all when I'm doing it, so there's no creases. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a shape down here that should just run through the other eye also, like this. And the more complex you make it, the more cutting you do, the more depth there's going to be in your image and the more marks that you're going to get. I've cut those two images, those two shapes out now, and now I'm just going to go ahead and quickly cut out some more whilst you guys just watch. One thing that you will notice is that all of the shapes are using straight angular lines, often kind of different varieties of triangles or irregular shapes. Just like that. I'll get rid of that one. A little bit just caught there, so I'm going to go back in rather than just tearing it off. We want to be as gentle with this as possible because it's quite delicate. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to place that one on top of there. And you can see we already start to get a sense of distortion, and the image is really starting to look like it's layering. The next thing I'm going to do is get another layer, and then I'm going to repeat the same, only this time I'm going to cut out even more so that I can reveal more from there. So I might not necessarily be cutting out bigger shapes, but I'll be cutting out more shapes so that the end product of this one is really quite complex. Just so that you can see what I'm doing, I'm not going to use the ruler for this one, but you should continue to do so. trying not to work in the same areas that I know I worked before. What I'm also going to try and do with this one is leave lots of thin lines so that this becomes really quite delicate and intricate. So down here, I'm going to pass through here like this. I'm also going to cut the inside of that out like that. I'm going to take that shape up there. I'm going to pull one down in there. I'm going to go across here like this. And you can see once you build your confidence up, you can actually do this really quickly without compromising the quality of your cut. And then I'm going to cut one more shape out there just to get some variation at the bottom. And then I'll pop that layer on top of the other. And you'll see that that adds another layer of complexity. And we've got an outcome that looks like Aldo Tolino's. Fragmented, straight, angular shapes, sense of depth, considered layering.